This bird was about to turn one man's life completely upside down. The infant creature was discovered in the strangest of places, and when the man who found it brought the baby bird to his local vet, things really got crazy, because when the vet realized what it was, he was stunned. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. After a couple of minutes of following the sound through his garden, it led him to a small opening underneath his porch. This deck leading up to his front door was raised about 3 feet off the ground, leaving a long, shallow space free underneath. And Martin squatted down and stuck his head into the dark, damp space underneath his porch. There is something there. What is that? Martin saw a small object, and in it was something moving. Curiously, the man crawled deeper into the space until he eventually reached what he sought. What the hell? This wasn't your everyday garden bird. This was something strange, and Martin just knew it. He wanted to know more, but he also did not want to interfere too much. Martin knew that if humans meddled too much, a mother would most likely not return to her nest, so he chose a different approach. Martin placed the complete nest with the baby bird in the center of his garden. He himself took place behind the kitchen window, where he could perfectly see the chirping bird, and there he waited for the baby's mother to return. But after 4 hours of staring, no parent flew in to feed her. Eventually, Martin gave up and took the animal inside. He could tell that it was hungry, so he fed her some of his fishing maggots, and that's when another strange thing happened. Did she sprain her ankle? Martin's heart hurt seeing the poor animal struggling to walk, so he took it upon himself to seek help. The worried man called his local vet and asked if he could come over for a quick checkup. Martin drove over to the vet's office with the animal in a box on his passenger seat. Once at the vet's clinic, Martin was immediately welcomed in by the doctor himself. Martin placed the box with the bird inside on the vet's table, and that's when the drama started. The vet circled the curious bird multiple times, making notes along the way. It was quiet for the first few minutes, then the doctor mumbled the following words to himself. Sprained ankle, identifying characteristics? HME, the doctor made a splint for the bird's leg, but it was clear to Martin that the veterinarian's mind was busy with other thoughts than simply binding a bird's leg. Hence, the man did not seem that confident anymore. This is incredible. I've never seen anything like this were just some of the words leaving the veterinarian's mouth. After that statement, the confused doctor went to his desk to turn on the computer. Martin was still in the dark but tried to find clues by watching the doctor's monitor. After about a minute, Martin saw multiple images of a large bird flashing by. The animal looked strange but oddly familiar when looking at the baby bird in front of him. Was this the animal in its adult stage? The creature looked intimidating, and that made Mart scared a bit. That's when the doctor turned his chair and said, "You're not going to believe this, but this animal should not be able to exist. I'm completely in shock by this discovery." The doctor then explained that this specific bird was filed as extinct by all world databases over 20 years ago. Martin couldn't believe it, but according to the vet, it had to be true. He inspected all the animal's distinct features and it checked out. "Where did you say you found it?" "Under your porch," Martin nodded, but that wasn't the final question. If Martin had found the baby, where would the mother be? Martin's vet answered many of his questions, but he also added some pieces of concern to the puzzle. If this bird is known as an extinct species, then this baby and her family might be the last of its kind on the entire planet. This was incredible and scary at the same time. Again, the baby bird remained creepily calm. That was not without reason, but we will find out why a little bit later. In the meantime, the car had reached Martin's driveway again, and the two men stepped out on the hunt for this extremely rare bird. When they reached the porch where this adventure all started, a woman was already waiting for them. Martin was kind of confused when he saw her, but the vet assured Martin that she was very wanted in this situation. While closing up shop, the vet called in an expert to help. Her name was Melissa Brown, and she was one of the leading bird experts in the state. If anyone knew anything about indigenous birds, she would be the one. The trio walked over to the edge of the porch, where the small 3-foot opening was. "This is where I spotted her, all the way in the very back," Martin said while pointing into the dark hole. She showed the two men the pieces and explained that this type of bird only lays one egg at a time. It was already scarce 20 years ago, and with the low number of eggs hatched every season, their extinction was almost imminent. But somehow, this one survived. It's incredible. There was only one problem. In the case of this rare bird, the mother rarely leaves her child. So the fact that this baby bird was here alone was not a good sign. And normally the father goes hunting for food while the mother continuously says with her young. Martin explained that he waited for 4 hours without seeing the mother. That's not good. The mother of this kind would normally always return for her child. So the fact that this didn't happen meant that something was keeping her away. But what she explained once more, that this bird family needed protection since it was probably the last of its kind. Martin was overjoyed and a little nervous because these claw prints looked huge. They had to go now. Martin wanted to place the baby bird safely inside, but the vet told him not to. He said they might need the baby bird's call to lure her mother. Martin agreed and held the box close to his chest as they followed the track away from his garden. The trail led them into the forest, to where the baby bird's chirps echoed through the trees. After about half an hour of walking and trying to spot the trail, something suddenly happened. The baby bird let out a loud chirp, and this time it received a response, but this sound was much deeper. Without saying another word, the three people shuffled through an open piece of the forest, trying to avoid twigs on the ground. She reached out her hand, gesturing that Martin should give her the box with the bird inside. Martin obliged as Melissa placed the baby bird in the center of the forest floor. Now they waited. The baby clearly recognized her mother because her chirping increased in volume. Her call of attention worked because the large shadow that flew overhead quickly shot down and landed on the forest floor beside her. The bird was huge, the largest one Martin had ever seen, and that included zoo visits. Why would a mother bird leave her young like that? And why did the baby bird trust people so easily? But then they suddenly saw the expert inch closer. "No, what are you doing?" Melissa shushed them and asked for trust as she moved closer to the two birds. Martin and the vet didn't understand what was going on, but apparently, the expert spotted something differently. Her demeanor seemed to have shifted. It was like she had found a new form of confidence, the kind that only came with finding out new information. But what was it? Martin and the vet watched closely as Melissa calmly walked up to the two birds, eventually standing right beside them. For some reason, the mother and her child remained completely calm. It was the strangest sight and about to get even stranger. Melissa smiled and asked the two men to come out of hiding and join her. Martin looked at the woman, confused, and told her to give the bad news first. "Well, this bird is not the extinct species we thought to find today, so unfortunately we have failed in that mission. But that doesn't mean that these creatures aren't special." Martin saw how the lady stroked the bird's feathers. As the expert explained that this was a very special type of bird called the harpy eagle. It was one of the largest eagle species and was still rare, especially this one. Melissa showed them the coloring on the feathers and said there were only about 1,000 left on Earth. "But how were you able to touch them?" Melissa smiled and said that the harpy eagle is one of the most intelligent birds on the planet. She stated that they were known to be trusting and friendly toward humans. She also admitted that their appearance did resemble that of the extinct animal quite closely. "I was fooled as well. There was one odd thing though. The harpy eagle was not native to this world, so seeing it here was pretty strange. They are probably the first of their kind to settle in this neck of the woods." The expert went on to explain the child's abandonment. She believed that due to the baby bird's injury and the trust these animals had in humans, the eagle figured that a human could help her child better than she could. These birds were beautiful, emphatic, and mostly highly intelligent. And somehow, the mother bird's plan worked to perfection. Her child was bandaged up and feeling a lot better than before. Martin also found a whole new appreciation for nature and this bird species. In a moment later, the father flew in. The trio stepped back and watched the loving scene unfold before them in amazement. Both parents nudged the baby bird before lifting it off the ground and bringing it to a nearby tree. Martin felt a warm feeling well up inside of him. "This was an amazing journey, thank you."